And hi, everyone. We've made it to the end of another The Ed Collab gathering, our spring 2024. This is our 21st gathering. Thank you so much for being a part of the day here with us. Just a few things, if I can turn this on, just a few things as we're moving towards our closing keynote. So first, today's gathering, like all gatherings, is archived. So if there are sessions today that you missed that you still would like to see, you can come back to the event website, gathering.theedcollab.com, and there you could watch the entire agenda of sessions all the way up until this summer, until August. All of these sessions are also archived on our YouTube page, so youtube.com/theedcollab, and you can find the entire spring 2024 gathering playlist right there. So if there's a session you wish you could have seen that you missed, you can check it out. Also, there's one more chance to join our viewing party. If you head over to Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/groups/theedcollab, and there you can join our viewing party group. And we have a chat going that we'd love to hear from you as you watch this closing session. You also can use the QR code right on your screen. A reminder that our entire day is free, and we invite you to take what you would have paid for coffee or perhaps for a registration, or maybe even if you're traveling to a conference, maybe you'd pay for a hotel or a flight, and consider paying that joy forward. If there are parts of today that you felt inspired, things that you're going to take back with you to your own practice, just a way of saying thank you is to pay the joy forward to one of our adopted charities for today. Samira adopted We Need Diverse Books for us, and our closing keynote, Tracey and Maria, have adopted Latinx Kidlit Book Festival and the National Writing Project. So you can find all of those and information on them, as well as direct links to those charities for their donation page at gathering.theedcollab.com/charity. Or if you're watching from our event site, you can click right over to anywhere on the screen it says charity. At the bottom of the screen, at the top of the screen, you can click and find the charity page. And please do pay the joy forward. I would like to have a big thank you before we move to our closing. Thank you, first and foremost, to you for tuning in, whether you tuned in live or you're watching sometime in the future. Thank you for being a part of this day. This is the Educator Collaborative's free gift to educators from around the world, and we're so glad that you could join us and tune into these amazing sessions and keynotes today. Great big thank you to Samira Ahmed, who kicked off our day this morning. Thank you so much for being part of our day and getting us all started in such a big and important way this morning. Thank you to everyone who presented today, all of the incredible workshops. And again, they're archives. You can come back and watch them again. Then I absolutely want to pause and please give a virtual or physical, if you're at home, you can clap at your screen. Thank you to the tech team. Jessica Walsh has been with us from the very start. Jessica, we've done 21 of these together. How's that possible? I'm very young. We're very young people, but we have done 21 of these gatherings together. Thank you, Jessica, for your continued leadership. And Abby has joined in as one of the tech team co-leaders just several gatherings ago. So thank you, Abby, as well. These two are full-time educators, and in addition to all the things that full-time educators need to do over the past several months, and especially in these past several weeks leading up to today, They've done so much to support presenters, to make sure that the event site is working, to make sure that you see everything as great as you possibly can. So thank you, thank you, thank you to Jessica and to Abby. I'm forever grateful for your work, and I really, really appreciate you being a part of this day. The Ed Collab gathering is hosted by the Educator Collaborative. You can learn more about us, our think tank, our group, and our consulting workshops, all the other things that we do at theedcollab.com. We do present each year workshops to districts, universities, nonprofit organizations. We also especially love to do K-12 consulting around literacy with schools and districts. Each year we have several partner districts that we work with, and we spend many sessions across the year, multiple visits for many days, working inside of classrooms with teachers and their students and supporting the work that you do and developing strong methods and practices. So if you are interested in having us come out to your event, or especially if you're interested in having us come and work with you during the school year, we would love to do that. Please reach out at theedcollab.com. All right, without further ado, let's move over to our closing keynote. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce these closing keynote speakers. I will also say they are doing double duty. They're actually currently, probably right now as we're talking, presenting at the ERA conference this weekend. So both Tracey and Maria have pre-recorded their closing session for us. They didn't want to miss this. They also are already live at that conference this weekend, so they recorded for us. One thing I will just note is in the recording process, somehow they were presenting, you can see their wonderful faces the entire time they're presenting, but in the recording, somehow their faces got cut off. So everything as it is, and especially that they're gone, you'll hear their voices, you will see their slides, you just won't see their faces. And so apologies to you and apologies to them that whatever happened in the transference of recordings, that's where we are, but you'll get to hear them. So all of that prep, I will say you are really in for a treat. Dr. Tracey Flores has been a member of the Educator Collaborative for many, many years now. I immensely am impressed by her work, inspired by her work, and I learned so much from her. She's an award-winning educator and founder of Somos Escritoras, We Are Writers. It is a group for young girls to, through their writing, really think about and connect with themselves, their heritage, their experiences. Inside of that group, Tracey often pairs girls with their mothers or grandmothers or parental figures. It's an incredible group. It's a project that has been going on for several years, and you can learn more about it by finding Tracey and Somos Escritoras online. Tracey is also a very active member of the National Council of Teachers of English. She is co-chair of the Latinx Caucus. The Latinx Caucus, along with the Black Caucus, puts on an incredible cultural celebration every single NCTE. So if you've gone to one, you in part can thank Tracey for all of her incredible organizing behind the scenes of that. If you've gone to NCT but never gone to the cultural celebration, next time you go, you need to go. I go every year that I'm in person. I always go, and it's always incredible. And Tracey wears many, many, many other hats at NCT as well. And she is co-author with her co-author, Dr. María Fránquiz. When Tracey said that Maria was presenting with her for our gathering, I was speechless. Maria is an incredible educator, award-winning. She's an NCTE recent past president. She also has served on the Research Foundation as a part of cultivating new voices amongst scholars of color. She is a co-editor of the Bilingual Research Journal. She is a co-editor of a number of books for researchers, for educators around the Latinx, Latinx experience. And she's co-author of this brand new book, Cultivating Young Multilingual Writers, which their closing session is all around. And you can find that at NCTE. So without further ado, I would like to pass you off to Tracey and Maria for their closing keynote.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Chris, for a wonderful day. We are so excited to be here with you today in community at this day of learning, our gathering of minds and voices and hopes and dreams. And we are thrilled to be part of the conversation, to be sharing work, our latest project, work that's very near and dear to our hearts, and to open up some wonderful classrooms to you of writing teachers doing amazing writing work that really is a testament to doing the work that matters. And my name is Dr. Tracey Flores, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Texas at Austin. And I am also a former classroom teacher, school teacher. I taught for 8 years in classrooms across Arizona, second grade, third and fourth grade, and sixth grade. And at UT, I prepare pre-service teachers to become classroom teachers. My students are enrolled in our ESL generalist courses, and I teach courses in language arts. So we really work hard on unearthing their writing and their stories, as well as supporting them in designing classrooms where writing can thrive and grow, and where writers can thrive and grow. And I am here with my mentor and colega, Doctora María Fránquiz, and I'll have her introduce herself as well.
Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here with you. I am a professor at the University of Texas at Austin in the bilingual bicultural education program area. I was originally a preschool teacher up to first, second grade in Long Beach, California. I've moved a lot since then, and I have been in Texas for a while. I was trained as a sociolinguist at the University of California in Santa Barbara. And I'm interested in different varieties of Englishes and different varieties of Spanishes, and the ways that teachers and students use all their linguistic resources for speaking and writing. One class I love to teach to our undergraduate students who are seeking certification in bilingual education is the Latinx Children's Literature course. So this work is near and dear to my heart. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and to honor your diverse languages, histories, and experiences. So let's get on with the conversation.
Absolutely. So the title of our conversation is also the title of our book, Cultivating Young Multilingual Writers, Nurturing Voices and Stories in and Beyond the Classroom Walls. And as we're sharing, we invite you to grab a notebook, to grab something to write with, draw with, so that you can reflect on your own experiences in the classroom as a student, wherever you're at in your journey, to reflect on your experiences as a writer, and also thinking about all the learning that we've done today together. And we also invite you to share online with the using the hashtag the EdCollab Gathering. So we'll continue right now. And to get us started, we wanted to shout out two organizations that we have adopted for the day. And these are two organizations that are near to our and dear to our hearts. And we pick them because of their support to our communities, their support of children, youth, teachers, families, of really bringing good professional development to teachers, while also building the capacity of teachers and also connecting community to schools in really beautiful ways. And the first organization that I want to shout out is the Latinx and Kidlit Book Festival. We've adopted them today as one of our organizations that we invite you to pay the joy forward. This gathering that we've put on today is free. And we invite you, if you feel called to, and if you can, to pay the joy forward to one or both of these organizations. And so the Latinx and Kidlit Book Festival was founded by Las Musas, and it is an organization that aims to connect Latinx authors and illustrators with readers and educators in classrooms around the globe. And this organization works tirelessly to ensure that students are connected to books, that students have books in their hands, that They are connected to storybook creators, illustrators, picture book creators, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful organization. And in September each year, for the past few years, they've been organizing an online free book festival where on you can zoom in and have authors and illustrators in your classroom giving book talks, craft lessons, and they're bilingual as well. And it's just a really beautiful organization that's really, really pushing us to center the voices of Latinx kid book creators. And it's an organization that I wish existed when I was a young girl so that I could be connected to the stories of my heart. And so we invite you to pay the joy forward to the Latinx and Kid Book Festival, and also join them in September at their online festival.
We'd also like you to remember to pay it forward to the National Writing Project. Tracey and I are both consultants for the Writing Project. I originally became a consultant way back when I was a doctoral student at University of California, Santa Barbara. When Sheridan Blau was still the director there before he moved on to New York. In the University of Texas at Austin, where both Tracey and I work now, there's a very wonderful version of our own writing project. And many of you yourselves out there are familiar with the work in your own locations. It's a pleasure to pay the joy forward with all the projects that exist across the United States that are embedded in the desire to create children as authors of their own lives, their own experience, their own histories, and to share it with the rest of us. So we're very, very happy to have these two organizations then acknowledged through our continued work.
Thank you.
Now we have
And now what we're going to do is we are going to dive into some excerpts from the book. And we're going to start the way the book starts and the way that we love to start our talks with the voices of our young writers. And this is written by Virginia. And at the time of this, she was a 4th grade student in a dual language classroom in Central Texas. And she wrote this as part of a unit of study based on social justice. The teacher this specific teacher worked with her grade level team to design and facilitate and teach a social justice unit of study in which each student picked a social justice issue that they were passionate about, learning more about their culture, their identities, thinking about racism and how it impacts their culture and identities, all sorts of different social justice issues, unhoused individuals that, are part of the community that that they were really wondering, like, how can we fix this? And Virginia wrote about her Mexican culture. They spent a lot of time exploring their lives and also thinking about the lives of others in the community. And she wrote about her Mexican culture. I've lived in America my whole life, but still embrace some of my Mexican culture, like my language, which is something that is very important to me. Somehow it makes me feel special because when I think of my family, I think of Mexico or even the language Spanish. And that is why Mexico and the language Spanish are special to me. Spanish reminds me of my family and culture, which makes me feel strong and powerful. Something else that reminds me of my Mexican culture is food. Some types of food that remind me of my family and my culture are quesadillas, tamales, and barbacoa. The real reason these foods are special to me is that I get to share them with my family. They remind me of a part of my culture that I don't show very much. So through this unit of study and through this identity writing that the teacher opened up space and invited the students into this exploration and examination of self, Virginia wrote about who she is and who she is becoming and how she is connected to all parts of herself. And in the classroom where she was learning bilingually. She was learning in English and in Spanish. So her bicultural and bilingual identities were being embraced every single day. And she was starting to recognize how it gave her a unique perspective in the world and really influenced the way that she saw the world and the way that she interacted with the world. And so we wanted to start with Virginia's words to remind us of the type of writing that is possible. And I'm going to continue with her piece. Another thing that I love about my Mexican culture is the stories that my family tells me. My whole mom's side of the family is Mexican, so they tell me stories about their childhood and how they grew up so much differently than me. The stories are always so amazing. They're like windows that let me see into their life and how interesting it is. I wrote this piece because I believe it is my duty as a Mexican American to change people's minds about Mexicans and stereotypes people say about them, because I believe that everyone is equal and everyone should be respected. And so at the end of her piece, we also see her describing her transnational experiences, what it means to be brought up by a community across borders, real and imagined, and how she learns about herself through the stories of her family, of her mom, and those who raised her and love her. And then at the end, she describes why she wrote this piece, her purpose. And we're going to come back to this at the end. We really wanted to bring in her voice to set the stage for all of the stories that we're going to hear today and all of the conversations that we're going to have together.
So this is the front of the book, and as you can tell, at heart are the children who pick up writing, who love writing, who share their writing, and make a difference in all of our lives. This book was a true labor of love because it highlights the teachers who help children to then become the authors of their own lives. The book is part of a series that the National Council of Teachers of English has been publishing in the last few years. It's called The Principles in Practice and elevates the voices of teachers and the communities that they represent. Part of what NCTE also does is that it has position statements. And one that is highlighted in our book is the professional knowledge for the teaching of writing. As we all know, that has changed over the years because composing is not only pencil and pen, but it can be video, photographs, other media. It can be rural, it can be urban, with the topics that are most important in those communities. It's about elevating voices, mutually supporting each other in our writing processes. So to create the statement, always we include teachers, highlight teachers who are every day working with children who are developing their authoring selves. So in the book, we used parts of the statement because together we know that everyone has the capacity to write, that writing can be taught, and teachers can help students become better writers. And this goes on to high school, college, our own lives every day as we practice different ways of writing and expressing and communicating ourselves.
And throughout the book, the teachers that we highlight, the teachers' stories that we are privileged to share with you today and in the pages of our book, really embody this belief. They come to their practice, they come to their classrooms each day, they come to the world with this belief that their students are writers and that they have stories to tell and that they can further develop them through creating those conditions necessary for the writer to thrive, for the writer to gain confidence, for the writer to grow in all the ways that a writer can and beyond. And so we want to share also how we come to this work. we're not removed, we're not writers or researchers or teachers who are removed from this work. This work is very much a part of our hearts. And you're going to hear us say this throughout our conversation because it's really, we believe so much in this work, and this is what drives us every day to continue doing this work. And so I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a second generation Chicana, and I did not grow up speaking Spanish. And that is connected to my mother's history of being punished when she was in school. She got in trouble for speaking Spanish, and that made her feel very ashamed, and that made her feel unsure of her language and her identity. And so when I was born, Spanish was around in my house and in my family, but it wasn't something that we really used at home. And it wasn't until I got into like junior high and high school that I started to really grapple with that part. I don't want to say, yeah, grapple, really think about that part of my identity and what that meant for me. And my mother was shamed for not for speaking Spanish, and I've been shamed for not speaking Spanish. And I've spent my middle school years, high school years, and up into my adult years, really trying to reclaim that part of myself and heal that part of myself, not only for me, but for my mother and for my daughter, Milagros, and for the future generations. And so with my mother's story and my own tensions of trying to learn and embrace and know that I am a Spanish speaker, I really take that with me into the classroom. And in Arizona, when I was teaching, I saw the same types of not spanking the way it happened to my mother, but laws in place that were really also silencing my students' languages. And, I would see my students policing each other's languages. He's speaking Spanish, teacher, and because of what they were hearing about their language and because of the type of classroom settings that they were learning in that were English only. And I saw this history being replicated, throughout the curriculum and these laws that were really harmful and makes you question your identity and internalize these things that you're hearing. And so from that experience, as I was experiencing all of this, I designed a writing workshop for my second grade ELD students and their families to come together and write and share stories, storytelling, the way that I had been raised around stories and storytelling. And that experience completely changed everything about the work that we were doing together. And it became a space where we learned together, that we all took turns as being teachers, as storytellers, and really sharing those stories that we had kept in our hearts. And I continued that work until, until I continued on to my doctoral work. And as I was getting my doctorate, I thought about what if there was a space for young Latina girls as they were moving from adolescence to adult, to that adolescence to like young women, when they're starting to experience different things in their lives. And that's when it gets harder sometimes to communicate with our parents for many different reasons. And so I designed a writing workshop for Latina girls and their parents to write and share together and learn from each other and open the lines of communication. And after 2 years of that experience, the girls wanted a space for their own, these middle school, high school girls. And so when I moved to Austin, I created that space, Somos Escritoras, just for the girls to come together and write and share. And since 2018, my first summer in Austin, we've been coming together every single summer, even during the pandemic, online, to write and share our stories. We read text, we create art around it. These texts are about culture, identity, language, what it means to be a girl, like all of these things that we think about in our lives. And we create stories and reflect on our experiences together. And we're going to be hosting a workshop this summer, and this is the work that's really near and dear to my heart, and for the girls to also know that their voices matter and they have important stories to share and perspectives that can change the world. So I wanted to share a little bit about how this has evolved. All of the ways I think about writing continue to evolve and shape the work that I do with my pre-service teachers, and then the work that I do with the young girls each summer and throughout the school year.
It's wonderful to hear your story, Tracey, always.
Mhm.
So I came to the mainland United States from Puerto Rico when I was 9 years old. My schooling began in Spanish, and then it suddenly transitioned into English because I came at a time where bilingual classes were not available, where my father, as a military man, was stationed. So I'm lived in many different places, went to many different schools, including private, public, and Department of Defense schools. So my life has been geographically diverse and enriched as a result. So when I came to Texas in the year 2002, I wanted to learn about Texas because I was coming from, at that time, Colorado. And I met a wonderful young doctoral student who had lived all her life in Texas in the Laredo, Mexico border. And I told her I wanted to visit rural Texas. I wanted to know what it was like. And we set out together where she herself was doing writing project activities with children in rural Texas through the Laredo Writing Project. So we went to Encinal, Texas. You can see the kids there in the picture. They were the first graders. And the school was 99 kids from pre-K to sixth grade. It was wonderful to be in a variety. I learned to appreciate all the geographical spaces in my life, but this was a unique experience. The children were wanting to learn about English and Spanish, but none of them really knew much Spanish at all. They spoke it, but they had not seen many books written in Spanish, stories that were told in Spanish, but they could not usually have opportunities to extend those stories using Spanish. So we thought we would bring that as naturally as we could into the classroom. One of the ways was we asked them why their families lived in Encinal, and they gave us a variety of reasons because most of their families had livestock, plants, and worked in the mineral and the train industries of in the past and in the present. But then we asked, do you know what Encinal means? And well, Encinal is where we live. And I said, no, Encinal also has another meaning. Words have different meanings. So they learned that an oak tree, a Spanish oak tree, is an encino in the singular, and an encinal was a group of oak trees. So we asked them to create oak trees and to see the patterns of oak trees, and then to write the words singular and plural in Spanish, encino and encinal. They never knew they lived in a place that was named in the named language of Spanish. They were so proud just to learn this, to go back and say they did know some Spanish and they lived in a place with a history of Spanish. And they were also learning math, the way math is being taught, to notice size, shape, color, texture, big, big, small, small, big, small, big, small. And they wanted to know how to say that in Spanish. So we had a lovely time together, as you can see, and they were very proud to show their work. And it's the same thing that I do with women and men who want to become bilingual teachers in the state of Texas. We go through literature that is dual language, and when it's not dual language, most of it is not. It has a sprinkling of Spanish, or it could be another language. But then we pick out the ones you love, the ones you would like to do lessons with. If the lesson is usually urban rather than rural, what would you consider in order to adapt it to a different audience? And so you can see that one young person, I say young because I'm not so young, who is going to enter the teaching profession that I've lived in for quite a few decades, who wrote that the book she loved is Soñadores. Soñadores me encantó porque representa la comunidad inmigrante y lo usaría para una lección con mi clase sobre diferentes comunidades. The reason I wanted to point out this piece is there's so much learning in just a quick write of what I am learning about this book I just read. She talked about Dreamers, written by Yuyi Morales, and that it represents the immigrant community. And she would use it to create a lesson about different kinds of communities, which is beautiful because an immigrant community is not segregated to the side. It's one of many other communities. So I love to see the learning that it makes children, first graders, so proud of where they live and what they're learning, as well as teacher educators myself as a teacher educator, making a difference in someone who wants to become a bilingual teacher, knows the book, knows why she would use it, and yet would not use it in a separation that separated Tracey and her mother in generations because of language. So what book you would read and has had a major impact in your life is what I continue through the 15 weeks of every semester I get to teach Latino children's literature. So that is a way of which I introduce reading and writing and represent it in many ways through the photograph that you see here, whether it be of a written text or one that is illustrated with other visual signs. It sounds simple, and yet it is what we sometimes forget is that holistic feel that really gives us pride in learning to author our own selves. So now we're going to move into an activity. Yes, Tracey?
Yes, and I was just thinking about those kids. I wonder where they're at now, and they've got to be like grown up, like.
Yes.
But so just time. But thank you for sharing. I love that picture so much. So now we're inviting you to take a moment. And at the beginning of our conversation, I invited you to get something to write with, draw with, create with, and we invite you into a quick write. And we want you to reflect and to think about what experiences do students need to see themselves as writers, and how do I provide these experiences? We just invite you to take some time to reflect on this and to think about the things that you're doing in your classroom, all the good things that you're doing in your classroom, and maybe also things that you want to try that you've learned today or that you're thinking about as we continue our conversation. And this would be a good time for you to pause the video if you're watching it in community or if you're watching it on your own, to take some time for this reflection. And we also want to invite you to share your reflections via social media, via X, via Instagram, whatever platforms you're on, and be sure to use the EdCollab Gathering hashtag. And we're going to go ahead and move on, but we invite you to spend some time reflecting. And so here are the 6 teachers that are highlighted in the book. These are the stories that we're going to share today. And I'm going to turn over to Maria, who's going to just give a little bit of context of the 6 teachers.
So it's a pleasure to always do classroom-based research where we are really working with the teachers to better understand how content can be delivered as the population changes from school to school, district to district. So we have 6 wonderful people who opened up their lives to us over quite a period of time.
It was a labor of love.
Yes, it was definitely a labor of love for all of us.
And it sustained us too. I really believe that, as we wrote a lot of the book during the pandemic too, when we were all at our homes and remotely meeting as well. And 5 of these teachers are located in Texas, and one of them is located in Arizona. And we're going to share just briefly a little bit more about each of them. And so Miss Ortiz and Miss Carrie Alexander, Miss Ortiz is at the time was a 2nd grade bilingual teacher, and she's back in the classroom as well. She had moved on to do some coaching work, some district work, and now she's back in the 2nd grade in Central Texas. And she grew up as a Mexican American child of migrant farm workers. in the frontera, so on the Texas-US border. And she grew up as a simultaneous bilingual speaker. And she invites her students to use all their linguistic resources to make meaning. So she embraces translanguaging, and her experiences uh, as a Mexican American child growing up as a simultaneous bilingual really inform her practice and how she comes to her work and all the experiences that she organizes and designs for her students. Miss Carrie Alexander, she, at the time of this, as we were writing this book, she was teaching fourth grade in Central Texas, language arts and reading. And she's also a teacher consultant for the Heart of Texas Writing Project. My colleague Maria mentioned that earlier, that we have that vibrant site at UT Austin, and that's the Heart of Texas. And through this, she has provided professional development and also become part of that larger network of our Heart of Texas Writing Project teachers. And she has created a podcast series. Now she's a doctoral student, doctoral candidate. She's about to go to her first assistant professor job in Maryland. She created a podcast called Coaching with Carrie that focuses on community teacher voices and stories based on the coaching that she does of pre-service teachers as they are learning how to teach in classrooms throughout Texas.
So two of the other teachers are Sandra Springer and Miss Soledad Bautista. Sandra is a native of El Salvador and very proud of it. In 2017, she was honored as the Texas Bilingual Teacher of the Year by the Texas Association for Bilingual Education. And when we worked in her classroom, she was teaching third grade. She has since then moved on to middle school and as a Spanish teacher in middle school, and then has come into our own bilingual, bicultural education program and is now a teacher educator. She intentionally cultivates a translanguaging stance, really believing that for writing instruction, children should feel fluid to translanguage as needed. Miss Soledad Bautista, at the time of our study, was teaching fourth grade, one of my favorite grades, using a writer's workshop approach. She believes that multilingualism and multiculturalism are perhaps one of the strongest hopes we have to write a different history, or her story. She is, it's clearly that in her classroom, she really not only believes this, but enacts it on a daily basis.
And the final two teachers that we're going to share stories from today are Cristina Bustos and Carmela Valdez. And Cristina Bustos teaches in Arizona, was teaching in Arizona at the time of this, as writing the book. And she has taught 3rd through 8th grade in cities across Phoenix, Tempe, and Mesa. And we actually taught together in Phoenix during my first years in the classroom. And for NCTE, she's created principles of how to create multimodal text sets to teach writing and to engage readers in different genres, as well as in her classroom, she really works hard to explore culturally relevant literature connected to the lives of her students to inspire their writing. And this is also something that directly is part of her identity as a bicultural, bilingual individual who is also embracing her many identities as well. And right now she's working on her doctorate at Arizona State University. And then Miss Carmela Valdez teaches, at the time of this, she was teaching 1st grade, and she's taught in early childhood dual language in Central Texas. She's currently teaching pre-K, and she has been awarded the NCTE Donald H. Graves Award for Excellence in the Teaching of Writing. And this award celebrates really incredible teachers of young writers who come with this belief that their students come as writers and that they can develop them further as writers, and who set up their classrooms in a way that help the writers to thrive. And she's very passionate. She's a very passionate advocate for the rights of every multilingual student and believes language is a civil right. And she really works hard to be the teacher that she wished she had and that she wishes that her parents had as well. And so we're so excited to share the stories vignettes from each of these classrooms. And we're going to share a little bit from each chapter. And each chapter is written around themes. And you'll see a lot of overlap in these classrooms. You'll see a lot of overlap around classroom design, around teaching, teaching design, craft, mentor text. And that's intentional too. And each chapter really hones in on specific aspects of these different themes that we found as we were observing classrooms and through interviews and so forth. And so this, I want to talk about designing a writing community, time, space, and the material culture of the classroom. And this really invites us to consider the ways that teachers organize classrooms to amplify learning, to center voices, to set up spaces for conversation, for collaboration, and for community. And in this chapter of the book, and in this part of our conversation, we're really going to highlight Miss Carrie Alexander and Miss Christina Bustos. And in their classrooms, and then you'll see throughout our conversation, they really have intentional time set up for writing, daily writing every single day, not just because I have 10 minutes here. It's really an intentional part of their day. Time and space, they have their room set up in a way where students can find the materials that they need as writers, where they can collaborate on projects, where they can really embrace and engage in the processes of writers. They use diverse literature as writing mentors. They also share their writing as part of writing mentors in the classroom, and they're constantly seeking out different types of text, digital, multimodal, all different sorts of text to teach and model for their students the types of moves that writers make. And they also practice living writerly lives, thinking about how they walk around the world and explore and observe and are ethnographers of the world and living these writerly lives. And they also see their classrooms as like a living room where you come together to have conversations, to learn together, and to grow together. And you'll see in the next two slides the design of their classrooms. And this is intentional in their elementary school classrooms. And this is what we see in classrooms K-20, thinking about our youngest learners all the way even up to our students at the university. How we design and organize the material culture of our classrooms really can prompt conversations, can open the space for different kinds of interactions in intentional ways. And these two teachers really design their space in that way to support their writers in their collaborative projects and in their individual projects as well. And so in the book, we invited both of these teachers who we highlight in this chapter and also right now to create a map of their classroom. And Maria had this idea, and I just think it's amazing. And it's something that we also do with our pre-service teachers, thinking about how do you want to design your classroom? What matters to you? Because you can also see their values and their beliefs and dispositions highlighted in the way that they design their classroom community. And you'll see how she calls this the living room, the carpet, our living room, our boat, our community circle, and how she organizes the central area for the students to all be facing each other at their desks. And then you can see where she is able to move her rolling chair around to confer with students, to meet with small groups, and to make sure that she's engaging with all of her students. And lots of tools and resources around the classroom for the students to gather, to get when they need for different projects, not just for writing, but learning across the day. And how even she's got it set up for them if they have writer's block and they need some inspiration, they can grab different things and write on different types of materials. And that also helps us as writers too. So I wanted to highlight the work of Miss Alexander. And she says, what we do each day centers around this notion of discovery, discussion, and play. And it is my job to create the classroom ecology that will continue to fuel the good work that fosters mindful, literate expression. And then Miss Bustos, you'll see her classroom as well. And you see similarly the tables facing each other so that students can see each other for discussions, for group work. And then those rugs in the middle of the community where then they meet for story, for read alouds, for mini lessons. And then the whiteboard and anchor charts where Miss Bustos tracks their learning, highlights their conversations so that they can refer back to them to continue to think and learn together. And then you just see all around the classroom, books everywhere. When I went into her classroom several times, she had books all over the place. She had bookshelves, but then she also had bookshelves that she made with crates. Kids had book bins at their desks. She even had books stacked on tables for different projects they were working on. And so she has the space set up in a way where students can access the materials that they need. It's organized for the work that they do as a community of writers and learners.
So there's becoming a bilingual family in a classroom is done in a variety of ways by our teachers. They have units, thematic units that are carried across time in order to produce different types of products and also to read and response to reading. So Miss Miriam Ortiz, her unit is for her second graders at the time of our study was Mis Raíces, My Roots. So the students read and they noticed content features of mentor texts about Latinx heroes, and they use writing to express their own memories, experiences, inquiries, and events. They even notice how heroic qualities exist among their own family members. That creation of pride was one of the goals in Miss Ortiz's classroom, and she did it beautifully, as we'll show in a moment. Miss Sandra Springer has a unit, a third grade unit, very sophisticated, called the Upstanders, which is for her the opposite of bystanders. And she teaches it that way, what it means to be a bystander, what it means to be an upstander. And it's based on a teacher activist stance. She is very much into the Freudian philosophy and knows that teaching is affected by the politics. As a Salvadoreña, she learned that as a girl. So she teaches us by picking out photos of heroes, women heroes, like Ruby Bridges, Sylvia Mendez, and others who fought for civil rights. And her goal is to build up bystander practices through problem posing in her classroom and designing solutions. So students across these classrooms, they are not afraid to talk about what they see in their community. They can be proud of their relatives or also sad about deportations. They know there's homelessness in the community and how to develop sympathy and empathy for those who are not as privileged, and speaking up for bullying and creating better signage for things like recycling in schools. Even though Mrs. Ortiz and Mrs. Springer are in different schools, these are the ideals that they uphold. And as a result, then we see it in the writers of their classroom. So here's an example from Mrs. Ortiz. This Osiel Jaramillo did a self-portrait of how he envisions himself as a superhero. And his sense of that self is un luchador, one who struggles, one who is a fighter. Soy un luchador en el ring de la vida. Mis raíces, mi familia, mi maestra, Mrs. Ortiz, me dan el superpower para alcanzar las estrellas. Sí, se puede. I am a fighter in the ring of life. My roots, my family, my teacher, Mrs. Ortiz, give me the superpower to reach the stars. Yes, you can. This is second grade. And he has these ideas of not only who I am, I can be a superpower, el rayo flash, but he puts CH on his cape, which is what they call him at home. Me dicen Chelito en mi casa. So he has this identity of who he is at home and who he is to the world, and he is a fighter, and he's a super fighter, and yet he carries with him that identity from home. It's just beautiful, and he translanguages in his writing. This is the goal, and this is what an example of how it was accomplished in Mrs. Ortiz's classroom.
I love that. I love that illustration so much, and just the different ways that he represents himself.
Yes.
And we wanted to share a little bit about Miss Bautista and Miss Valdez. And in their classrooms, just like the other 4 teachers that we've already shared a little bit about, there's so much more. They use the culturally relevant mentor text to support their students' writing and to help them see themselves as writers and the many different ways and purposes that people write for. And they teach to the strengths of each writer. And one very powerful part of their teaching is the daily conferring to support each individual writer to name their strengths, always naming the strengths. So the writer is doing good things. And then thinking about, where can I move this writer forward? Where can I push them, stretch them a little bit more as writers? And then they also model their own writing life, sharing their writing for their students and being that lead writer, that lead learner, that lead writer within the community of writers. And then they support their students in making the writing public, from publishing parties, inviting other classrooms in to read the work, to inviting families in for special author celebrations, to make that writing public beyond the walls of their classroom, beyond the teacher, beyond who's in that space. And we wanted to share a little bit from a writing project, again, from Miss Bautista's classroom. And I'm going to turn it over to Maria, who's going to read this for us.
Mi vida como inmigrante. Yo soy Jennifer. Mi vida jamás será la misma a la de México porque no tengo familia aquí. No se siente lo mismo el tener a toda tu familia en otro lugar que tenerlos a tu lado todo el tiempo. Yo extraño mucho las sonrisas, los abrazos, la comida y todas las tradiciones que teníamos juntos en familia. I am Jennifer. My life here will not be the same as it was in Mexico because I do not have family here. It doesn't feel the same having all of your family somewhere else than having them by your side all the time. I miss the smiles so much, the hugs, the food, and all the family traditions we had together. Imagine being up here with Jennifer in a classroom as she is in the author's chair, sharing what her life is like as an immigrant to this country. I couldn't have said it better myself than this young woman, this young lady in a classroom.
We're going to pause here for just a second before we move on. And I just want you to, we're inviting you to think about what we've shared right now about the teachers and the writing that is happening in their classrooms, and the ways that they've created the spaces, the different ways they bring in mentor text, the ways that they participate alongside their students as writers and storytellers and creators. And just to think about the type of writing that we've shared today and how this is possible in all of our classrooms, and that we really advocate for this type of real heartfelt writing that moves beyond the superficial to the really, beyond that super surface level towards deeper writing, the way that the many purposes of writing. And in our learning today, in our conversations, we want to share some big takeaways from what we learned from these teachers, and that we hope that you'll take away as well. So how do we cultivate young writers' stories? And so some of the ways that we've shared today and that we've observed and that we learned from these teachers is that teachers model storytelling. They are storytellers in their classrooms. They encourage storytelling, and they recognize that their students come from storytelling communities. And that is a really powerful way that they share their experiences and make sense of the world. So storytelling is a big part of their writing classroom and a big way that they open and invite writing to happen and composing to happen in their classrooms. Teachers also intentionally, and I want to make sure I highlight this, they're intentional about the text, the culturally relevant text that they use in their writing instruction. They've studied these texts on their own. They've thought about the writing moves that the writers make in these texts. They thought about the ways that they're going to introduce these texts and the ways that they're going to focus in on different craft moves, whether it be, circular endings, the use of dialogue, and the use of languaging across the text, and to encourage their students to think about the ways that they interact with the world through language and how they can use that in their writing as a resource. And then teachers writing and dialogue with students serves as a model to make the writing process visible to young writers. So teachers model their process for students so they can make visible and demystify that process of writing. Writing isn't not some code to be broken. It is something that we can share our practices, the places where we are feeling successful, and then the places where we're having a hard time, to have these conversations with students on how they can problem solve through these areas and also find strategies so that they can push through when they're on their own as well. So we demystify this by modeling and dialoguing with students about our own processes as well.
And young writers also want to write about their families. They want to feel a sense of pride in where they come from. They also want to keep remembering, if they've had to move from somewhere else, who their family is and bring them into the present. They want to inquire deeply also about others and social problems such as hunger or homelessness or immigration, racism, human rights, animal rights, sexism, bilingualism, so much more. Difficult topics are a wonderful initiative for writing what you know and what you don't know about the problems around you. Young writers also thrive in a community of writers. They get courage and encourage each other when they feel part of a community of writers. And the power of their words, as we have shared today, it's got to be shared beyond the classroom walls so that other pre-service teachers, other teachers in practice, other administrators can keep in touch with what's most important in students' lives in the present. So we are so happy with everything we've been able to share with you today.
And we hope that you go back to what you reflected on earlier and continue to reflect in writing and revise what you're thinking about for your classroom or what's possible. Maybe taking one small thing that we talked about today that you can implement tomorrow or on Monday in your classrooms or in the spaces where you work with young people, with children, with pre-service teachers, whatever context that you're in, with families as well. And as we close out our time together, we want to circle back to Virginia, who we heard from at the very beginning of our talk today. And thanks for hanging with us today. We went a little bit longer and we appreciate you being with us today. So I want to circle back to Virginia and remind us of the importance of centering the lived experiences of our young writers. And I want to share again about her purpose for writing and how she is naming herself as a writer in this moment. I wrote this piece because I believe it's my duty as a Mexican American to change people's minds about Mexicans and stereotypes people say about them, because I believe that everyone is equal and everyone should be respected. And so we want to leave you with the words of Virginia as she describes her purpose for writing, and also by describing as naming herself as a writer, really putting out there the reasons for why she writes and what she hopes that the reader takes away from her writing as well. Not just the reader, but the world.
So If you want to continue the conversation, if you have lingering thoughts, lingering questions, please do join us at hashtag the Ed Collaborative Gathering at Tracey Atla.
Yes,
And
so that's my X handle. It's not Twitter anymore. That's my X handle. And I invite you to tag me, to use the hashtag, and we will continue to be in conversation.
yes,
So
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for the day. Have a great rest of your day and continue the good work that you're doing.
Well, thank you so, so much, Tracey and Maria. You know why I was so excited for you. Such an inspiring closing for us. And thank you so much for all of your work. Again, you can find Tracey and Maria's book, Cultivating Young Multilingual Writers, at NCTE or anywhere online. You can find it where books are sold. Tracey and Maria also adopted for us from our adopted charities today, the Latinx Kid Book Festival and the National Writing Project. If you were inspired, as I was, by this closing keynote, please do go over to our charity page, choose any of the charities that you see there or all of them, and whatever you would have paid to hear an incredible closing keynote like this, or to attend an amazing conference day like we had here, whatever you might have paid for a cup of coffee during a break during a conference, or maybe for lunch or registration, or even to fly out somewhere amazing to attend, please consider paying that joy forward and adopting one of our, or helping to pay the joy forward to one of our adopted charities for today. Thank you again to everyone who made this day possible. Thank you, Tracey and Maria. Thank you, Samira, this morning. Thanks to all of our presenters. Please do check us out. We're all over social media. We're especially active on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. You can find us at the Ed Collab there. You can learn more about us at our website. You also can contact us if you'd like to have us come and work with you and your school or your district in the coming school year, or to have us come and speak at one of your events. Thank you to everyone, and especially thank you to you for tuning in. Thanks for all that you do for your colleagues, for each other, and for this incredible profession. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Take care.